I want to know what wires fired off and connected in your brain to make you want to do that business. Then I want to know, well, how did your business run and how are you helping people and all this other stuff. And through that conversation, I'll find out what's working and what's not working by your tone of voice, by the faces that you make, by the topics you spend a lot of time on, all of that stuff. And through that, I'm able to decipher what your top priorities are. But then a question that I always ask my customer is what's most important to you after I pull out those top priorities. I go, listen, so we can't work on all these things at the same time. We can put them in a list and we can knock them out one by one. I have a recommendation of what I think you should do first, but what's your thing? What would solve the problem for you if we did this first? Like what would, move the big needle, or what do you think is low hanging fruit or whatever? What's most important to you? That's how I decide.
This is Get Unstuck Podcast, a podcast for entrepreneurs who prioritize their life first, business second. I'm Mutita Panmuk, your host, who dedicates my life to designing and building a business that supports lifestyle. We will learn together from entrepreneurs around the world how they overcome their life challenges, their business obstacles, and yet still get unstuck from the hamster wheel of burying themselves into their business. Because time is the number one commodity in the world that you cannot get back once it's gone. So let's shorten the learning curve and see how can we prioritize better. Let's get unstuck. Hi, Get Unstuck Nation. Our guest today is a tech guru where he teaches people how to use SharePoint and other Microsoft 365 suite technology to improve their organization and job performance. So today, Therman Trotman, the founder of SharePoint Helpdesk, with more than 2 decades of IT expertise, will help Get Unstuck Podcast listener use technology to do our job better. So please welcome Trotman to Get Unstuck Podcast today. Yay! Hi, Trotman. How are you doing?
Mutita, what's up? I'm good. I'm great. I'm doing good.
I'm so excited because we were talking offline. I'm like, this episode is going to help many people, especially those of you who have been thinking about, am I going to start recording all the data or I'm going to start automation just yet? So hold on, listen tight and stay tuned and stay for the whole episode, okay? Before we get started, Therman, how can you get into this IT industry though? I'm so curious.
I was like, wow, this is interesting. I never even knew this was a thing. I didn't know what was going on inside of the computer. So then I started to touch inside of the computer and found out about the drives and the motherboard and how all that stuff worked. And then I kind of just knew that information. Shortly after that, I went to the Army. When I went to the Army, I was supposed to do a job. All right, so I don't know if you ever seen Saving Private Ryan, but at the beginning of Saving Private Ryan, they go running and there's a guy who has a radio on his shoulder. And I think it was Tom Hanks. I don't remember. Somebody grabbed the radio off of him and started screaming into the radio. When I joined the Army, I was supposed to be that guy with the radio. So I was supposed to make sure that the radio worked, make sure that, I do some preventive maintenance on it, all that other type of stuff. I was in charge of the radios. But when I joined the Army, because of the types of units that I went to, I did less radio and more computers. They had a need for computers. So one day, my sergeant, when he had an open computer, because we used to do hardware repair, he said, yeah, man, this is easy. It's just like Legos. That one sentence of him just saying, yeah, this is like Legos, had me like, wait a minute, you're right. It is like Legos. All you have to do is plug this thing into here, plug that thing into there, and your computer is going to work. So that started me on my whole computer thing. It was all hardware for a really long time. Me climbing under desks, disconnecting this, switching out hard drives, changing disk drives, doing all that stuff. And then one day, software got in the way and I never looked back. I gave up on hardware a long time ago.
What is the change between hardware and software? What is it that makes you shift?
So, like I said, I was climbing under desks, right? And I was physically doing a lot of stuff. I was unscrewing things and, burning out motherboards sometimes because I didn't follow the safety rules and, again, taking out drives and pulling over old information onto the new drives and, going through that whole thing, shopping for pieces. That was a whole thing. But once I figured out that I could sit at my computer and work on somebody else's computer, on their software, let's say for like a website, and I could make an update, publish that update, and then that was my fix. I was like, wait a minute, this is way more on par with how my brain works. Because if I had to do a fix before, it would be like I have to put the computer back together, make sure everything works, and then deliver that computer, like physically walk over to somewhere and deliver the computer. And if I dropped that computer off and something went wrong, I would have to be like, all right, let me come sit at your desk and fix this thing. So I'm interrupting them while they're trying to work. Or, hey, sorry, it's not working. I got to take the computer back to the shop and repair it there and bring you a replacement while that happens. Or at the time, I didn't think we had that sophisticated software where I could log into their computer and work on it while they work. But even that, if I could, I'd be holding them up. I'd be taking their time while they wait for me to fix a thing. When I discovered websites, mainly through SharePoint was my foray with like discovering business websites, not necessarily like WordPress and stuff like that, because I knew about that, but business websites where I could do a fix, make the publish, and then tell somebody, hey, refresh the page or go back to that link. My mind was blown because I was like, even if I make a mistake, at least it's not me having to go pick up a physical computer, bring it back to the shop, or go work on their computer while they're working. If I made a mistake, I just log back into the site, fix the update, and then hit publish again. My world changed. I was like, because I wasn't serving just one person. So that website that I'm fixing, multiple people use that website. So, you know, it could be 10 or it could be hundreds of people that need to use that website, and I can make the change from the comfort of my seat. And then if something goes wrong, you know, shoot me an email or give me a phone call and I'll fix it again. That's where I have made the change because it was just easier and way more, it was more fun. I gotta say that too.
You mentioned SharePoint. Since when you discovered it? I know that right now you are selling and teaching how to use SharePoint mainly and training us to awesome entrepreneurs out there. But how do you discover it? How do you came across it?
I was the IT guy in the shop that I worked in. I was a contractor and I was supporting the government, right? And the government bought SharePoint. Like they bought a company who was going to come and install SharePoint and say, hey, you could do these cool things. So when I was the IT guy, one of the main job that I had was like managing the conference room. So somebody would call me and then I would open up a calendar and they'd say, hey, is Friday at this time free? I want to use the conference room. And I'd look and I'd be like, yeah, it's good. I'd book them and then I'd send them an email and say, hey, make sure you show up at this time. Then I'd like have to schedule, what do you call that? Like get VTC lines opened up for myself and then give them to the people when they got to the room. So did all that. I was like coordinating video teleconferencing. And then when I got to the day of the meeting, I'd go to the room. I'd make sure everything is set up. I used to like clean the table and, you know, make sure the floors was vacuumed and all this other stuff. I'm like, I'm a customer service guy. You know what I mean? No matter what job you give me, I'm gonna go above and beyond to make sure that, you know, people are taken care of. So that was what it was before. The SharePoint rep from this company that the government hired, he came in and he said, hey, we can automate that for you. And I'm like, what? At the time, I didn't even use the terminology automate. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, okay, so we could like put a calendar on SharePoint and instead of people calling you, they would just go to the calendar, see what's free, book it, and then an automatic email gets sent to them and an automatic email gets sent to you. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Are you serious? And he's like, yeah, let me show you. Then he shows it to me and I'm like, okay, this is great. And then they made me be kind of like a business analyst, right? As opposed to necessarily being a SharePoint developer. I wasn't there yet. So I played that role. I was like, here's what needs to happen. You know what I mean? He captured the requirements, but they came from me on behalf of the business. So I'm like, because I'm a contractor. So I'm like, yeah, make it do this, make it do this, and make it do this. We go through some testing, we put it up, and then it works. And so going forward, one of the flagship tools on the SharePoint site for this government organization was the conference room scheduler, the CRS. So that was my introduction to SharePoint. And I was like, this is cool. I really, really like this. But my mind didn't think we can do this across the organization. Not yet. It wasn't until my boss at the time came to me and said, hey, what do you think about this SharePoint thing? We should send you to training. I was like, yeah, let's do it. So they sent me to the Learning Tree. And I left the Learning Tree. I think it was like a 4-day course. I came back from the Learning Tree. I walked outside of the classroom, got on my phone. I forgot who I even called. And I said, SharePoint is about to change our life. I was talking to somebody at the organization because I was like, I didn't know that you could do all of these things. And the way I saw it is like, once I placed eyes on it, he started showing what you could do. My mind just started going. And I'm like, wait a minute. We are struggling with X, Y, and Z processes. And you're telling me that there's this tool that can do these things? I got super excited to go back to the organization and tell them, do this. Like you can use the software to do this. It didn't go that way, but that's how I felt because, you know, I was still young in my career and I didn't know a bunch of things that I know now about people over technology and, you know, how to really do business and be strategic as opposed to just, if you build it, they will come.
This is good. Okay, let's talk about that. There is a problem it's big in my opinion and in my experience. When you start a company, this is a problem. When you start a company, it's always a problem when you decided to set up a system. I know we talk about this offline. What system I'm going to choose? What software I'm going to establish? Like what myself like to use, what my team like to use, what are they capable of using? Like, what is your suggestion? How to test or how to plan to teach them? Like how this flow in your opinion?
So I've been in the tech industry for a long time, but my process begins with people. Always. Matter of fact, I post on LinkedIn pretty frequently. I'm like daily on LinkedIn. And I think yesterday I posted one of these things that I always say, which is throw SharePoint out. Forget about SharePoint. Forget about software. If there was no software that I knew about just yet, it would not matter. That's not what I'm focused on. I'm focused on you and what your issue is. And then after I find out who you are and what your issue is, then I'm like, all right, start to do this. Start to do this thing. And then after start to do this thing, we think about, well, how can we make this thing better? Because to me, that's all technology does. Technology just makes it better. It doesn't do anything. So like my example is always with the gym, right? If you say to me, hey, I want to get stronger. I heard I should be lifting weights. And I know that that's your issue. I go, okay, put your t-shirt on, your shorts, your socks. Let's go. I'll take you to the gym and I'll show you these are the weights you should be lifting and how you should be lifting them in order to get stronger. Okay, cool. The problem is people do the opposite when it comes to technology. They think, oh, you want to go to the gym and get stronger? You should use this app to start tracking your stuff. You should buy these cool sneakers. You should wear this cool vest because it's going to cool you down. They overthink all of that stuff. And then guess what they do? They buy all that stuff. And they don't even end up going to the gym. You know what I mean? The most important thing is going and do the thing. And then after you do the thing, then we introduce technology to make it better. So for instance, I take you to the gym. You've been working out for like 3 weeks and you say something to the effect of, listen, man, as I'm working out, my t-shirt, I sweat a lot. It gets super soaked and it feels very uncomfortable. Is there a better t-shirt or something out there that I could buy that's like, doesn't hold all of this sweat? And I go, yeah, there's like these, well, whatever you call them, these air wicking, I don't know what you call them, but there's those t-shirts that keep you from feeling heavy with your sweat. That if you look at that as technology, which it is, it's a type of technology that we introduce into the situation that just makes things better for you. But it's not going to lift the weights for you, and it's not going to make you stronger. You make you stronger. You lift the weights. But the technology of this t-shirt will help you do it better because it'll take all that sweat off of you. Same thing with your sneakers. Same thing with if you're wearing a headband so a bunch of sweat don't drip into your eyes. That to me is how I approach technology. I get to know who you are. I get to know what your issues are, you know, what's working, what's not working. And then I roll in with, hey, let's do this technology. It just so happens that I know your issues with spreadsheets because I've been around it for years. So I'm kind of like, you know, out in front of that. I know your issues with spreadsheets and I know that SharePoint can solve those issues.
So I'm thinking along with you. It seems to me that it could be that they assume that these are their problem. Therefore, they choose this pre-protection software that may not necessary. And they pay expenses fee before they ever know how to use it. And they claim that it's not working. That is one thing. On the other hand, they maybe don't know how to execute the process that they attempted to do just yet. Therefore, they don't know how to run the workflow properly. That also another problem that occur in day-to-day, right?
Yep. That's one of the best. I'll tell you what, one of the best clients are clients who know what they want. If you know what you want, that makes my job super easy because all I got to do is bring your dreams to fruition. Now, I'm not saying if you don't know what you want that I can't help you. I'm just saying the best person for me to work with is someone who knows what they want. For instance, you walk into a restaurant, you sit down and you know, because you probably looked at it before you got there, I want the number 30, there's a number 34. 34 is like this big bacon burger. And with the big bacon burger, you want sweet potato fries and you want a lemonade. When the waiter comes over, you tell that to the waiter and you say, listen, I want this burger. I want it medium well. can you get me the sweet potato fries and a lemonade? Easy. That makes the waiter's job so easy because all they got to do is write it down and then go get it for you. But if you come there and you're like, I don't know what to pick. Hey, waiter, what do you recommend? You know what I mean? I'm a vegetarian, but every now and then I eat fish. What do you think? And now you're making the waiter take time to try to choose something for you, but a good waiter will listen to you and actually choose something pretty good. So there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying the best person is the person who comes to the restaurant and they know what they need. Second to that is someone who comes there and they know that they're hungry, but they don't know exactly what they want to eat. So then you help them get there, and I can help you get there too. So to your point about people who don't know the process that they're actually working on, that makes it a little bit of a struggle because in that situation, you don't even know that you're hungry, which is a little bit much to deal with. You know what I'm saying? But if you kind of have a rough idea of the process and you can explain it well and say, hey, we do intake at the front desk. And when we do intake, after we do the intake, we have to determine which person does it go to next. And we decide on these criteria. You may be running that whole thing with a spreadsheet, which is a bit, it's a bit much, but I can help you walk through to see where your gaps are and stuff like this. But if you say something to the effect of, listen, we have this process, we do it like this, it's working well, but it's too slow. How do we make it faster? That's great because now you know exactly what you need and I can make that happen for you with technology. So again, I want to make sure people understand that the concept I'm talking about is people first, technology second. You'll win every single time. You have to think that way. You can't lead with the technology is what I'm saying.
This is so important when you speak to any IT or any tech consultant. I believe that what is the problem that you want to solve? Like what is the end goal that you are looking for? So when they come up to you that they not know what is going on, usually how would you ask them? Because I believe that there are many people that maybe like they have like, what do they call it? Shiny object. Like, oh, I saw you on this podcast and I'm so interested in this software, but I don't know how it's going to work in my company. That's the question.
See, now that's the person who's hungry. They know they want to eat. They just need a little bit of guidance. You know what I'm saying? So I would say, I'd be like, hey, I'd have a conversation. I'd be like, hey, tell me more about your business because I'm super interested in that stuff. Like, I'm just naturally curious about what people do for a living and especially if they love it. Especially if you chose to do it as a business, then that means you must love what you do. Like you loved it to the point where you said, hey, I'm going to do it as a business. Unless you're just trying to, make some money and you'll do anything. That's a different story. But if you chose it as a business, I want to know what wires fired off and connected in your brain to make you want to do that business. Then I want to know, well, how did your business run and how are you helping people and all this other stuff? And through that conversation, I'll find out what's working and what's not working by your tone of voice, by the faces that you make, by the topics you spend a lot of time on, all of that stuff. And through that, I'm able to decipher what your top priorities are. But then a question that I always ask my customer is what's most important to you after I pull out those top priorities. I go, listen, so we can't work on all these things at the same time. We can put them in a list and we can knock them out one by one. I have a recommendation of what I think you should do first, but what's your thing? What would solve the problem for you if we did this first? Like what would, move the big needle, or what do you think is low hanging fruit or whatever? What's most important to you? That's how I decide. Once they say, okay, let's do this thing, then I'm like, okay, all right, cool. We'll make that the priority. We're not going to forget about these other things, but let's work on that first because it's too much. There's a lot going on in your business. You might think I have one issue or two issues, but then come to find out you got 8. And then you don't even know, how to rack and stack. It's a whole thing. So I walk you through it through conversation. And again, I get to know you and your business first. Cause again, I'm genuinely curious like that. I want to know what's going on there. So, and then through that process, we go to, the rack and stack. Then I ask you, what's the most important thing to you, like that.
Yeah, because.
But let me tell you, but Mutina, let me one more thing. I'll say.
Yeah.
Usually the thing that I see that you should start with, that I recommend on my end, is that we put everything in one location. And you can do that with a SharePoint site. I don't care what you're managing. I don't care what business you're running, what program you're running, what project you're running. Every single thing associated with that project or program or business should be in one location. That's it. Now, you might go old school and pull all that stuff in like a library in a folder. I wouldn't recommend that. But a SharePoint site can handle that for you. So that's usually my recommendation. but I don't try to push my recommendation on the person. I listen to them first to see what's most important to them. You know what I mean?
So the SharePoint site would be like a database that you created to be the back end?
No. It would be like a literal,
Can
like
you walk me through like, it's a website that would be.
It's a website.
Yeah.
It's a literal website. So it's like the same way you consider, what you think of when you think of WordPress. I go into WordPress and I could configure the back end of my website. Then I hit publish and I look at it and I can see my website on the internet. It is literally that. And I'm not exaggerating. It's literally that. So except it's not on the public website. It's an internal website. It's the intranet. So if you say, I want to set up my website so that this is a very real use case, when I hire new employees or when I maintain my business or when I start a new project or whatever, I want to put everything in one place and make it look like, cool and easy to get to on a website. You go into SharePoint, you create a site, you move some things around, you edit some things, you write some things, you put plugins on the page. They're called web parts. You do all these things and then you hit publish. I don't really like it. Let me hit edit and change some stuff around. Okay, now I like it. I hit publish again. That's literally it. And then you send all of your folks to that one location to make sure that they can get any and everything they need for your business or your project or your program, whatever. Literally
that's the knowledge base for internal company. Wow.
Yeah,
what else that you can do? Okay, I'm interested now. So that is the knowledge. Okay. I don't know.
More.
Maybe that is your term. Okay, tell me more about it.
All right, so there's three main things that SharePoint can do. It can really do a million different things, give or take, but there's three main things that it could do. It can create websites, it can host documents, and it can host information. So the create website part is the one I just told you about. The host documents is you could compare that to Google Drive, where you host documents. It's literally that same thing. I personally think it's
the whole
better.
Google Workspace thingy, like the whole thing right now. I'm using that.
Google Workspace is the whole thing, but I would only compare a SharePoint library specifically to Google Drive, which hosts documents, right? So SharePoint has that. It has sites and you can host documents. Number 3 is that you can host information. So this is the equivalent to what you would do with a spreadsheet. In a spreadsheet, you wouldn't host documents, you would host information. You would put, whatever you're tracking. So let's say you have let's say you're running a car business or whatever, you're just getting off the ground. You would probably use a spreadsheet to show all your inventory. Like here's all the cars that we have, the different colors that we have it in, that type of stuff. So SharePoint has that and it's called SharePoint lists. So instead of a spreadsheet, you would use a SharePoint list. Those are the 3 main things that you can do with SharePoint. SharePoint sites, SharePoint document libraries, and SharePoint lists. But my favorite tool is the SharePoint list, because a SharePoint list is where you start to automate processes, and it's game changer. It's a game changer. I love it. I've been doing it for 15 years. Been showing other people about it for 15 years. And the cool thing about SharePoint is that if you have Excel, if you pay for Microsoft 365, you already have access to SharePoint. There's no new software to buy. It's a little mind blowing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm using Mac right here, but I'm thinking along automate. Where the data come from and how it's automated and where it's automated to.
All right. So do you have a current spreadsheet that you could think of off the top of your head right now that you're managing?
Yes. So one of my clients right now, I only able to think for Google product. I'm sorry, but that's how I can just like make a scenario right here. So like that's a Google form for like a course registration. So a new student just onboarded, filling a form, and then it would go into a Google Sheet for the whole answer. For like 10 questions, let's say. That's it. We store the information to be used later. Okay,
perfect. So think of that same process, but now do it internally to your organization, right? Let's say that you have a company picnic or something like that that's coming up, and you want people to say whether or not they come into the company picnic. You can create a SharePoint list, and in that list, it would look like a spreadsheet. You would create things like, yes or no, are you coming? Probably yes, if you're filling this thing out. You create another one that says, are you bringing something? Like, are you bringing a dish? And then you can write the dish in, and then you might say, that's pretty much it. You could just say that. Are you coming? Yes or no? And then, are you bringing something? And if you're bringing something, you write what that thing is that you're bringing. So when you create that in SharePoint, in a SharePoint list, when you create those columns, you automatically get that form that you're talking about. So literally, as you create the column that says, are you coming, in the spreadsheet view, which looks like in the list view, which looks like a spreadsheet, your form gets automatically built and it has that same column that says, are you coming? So you now have a form and you have the list. You can now send people to the list, make them click new. It'll open up a form and then they say, I'm coming. Yes. And then in the next column, they say, I'm bringing, some mac and cheese. Right. And then they hit submit. And then that automatically goes into the list. So you have that. That's one. The next thing you could do is automatically send an email to that person because they signed up, and just send them a confirmation email to have them say that they're going. And I could go to that same list and say, you know what? I want to get a notification anytime anybody comes up and signs to this list, because I am the person in charge of this picnic. And I want to know every time somebody signs up, I want to get an email. SharePoint does that out of the box. The other thing, too, is that I don't have to ask that person to put their name inside of the form that we're talking about, because SharePoint automatically knows your name just from logging into the system. So I already know that information. I know SharePoint automatically knows when you created it, when you edited it, all of that stuff. It keeps track of that stuff. And then it does these automated emails out of the box. But then I'll take you one step further. So I told you about this list, right? The list is where they would go directly and do the sign up. But I also told you that SharePoint can do sites. So I would create a site that puts a big picture at the top that's like a picnic picture. And then I would say, hey, everybody, the picnic is coming up. We're going to have a great time. It was great last year. Click here to see pictures from last year's picnic. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Hey, we want to have a extra, let's have some extra desserts this year because we only had like one. Click here to sign up. And then that button is right there at the bottom of the text. They hit that button, they sign up. And then at the bottom of that page, I would show the list of who has already signed up. So you would see the list of who signed up, so you can see who's going and who's not. Do you really want to go? And then you see what they're bringing. So you could be like, oh, so 3 people are bringing desserts and those are what they're bringing. So I'll bring some sodas or whatever. I won't bring another dessert. So this page serves as that concept, a central location for all of the things you're going to be doing for this picnic. The sign-up sheet, the process of signing up, the blurb that explains what we're doing, and a link to MS Team where we're going to chat and post pictures and talk about how fun it was and all this other stuff. So I put all of that together on a page. And that process that I'm explaining, for me, I could fly right through it. It's very easy. But once you're done seeing how easy it is, you could fly right through it. It's not for everybody. You know who it's for? It's for those people who say, I know enough to be dangerous. So they're not, they won't call themselves tech gurus and all that other stuff, but they know how to get in there and tinker with some technology. If I train you, I'm fully confident that you would be like a superstar after I turned it over to you, because that's literally what happened to me. I went, saw the training, saw what we could do with it, came back, and then went crazy and started doing a whole bunch of stuff. So that is one tiny example of using SharePoint to do the same thing that you're doing, except we're not taking our data outside of the company into like a Google workspace. That's one. And then 2, because you already have access to SharePoint, you're not buying any new software or relying on any other software. And 3, once you are inside of the Microsoft 365 suite, no matter where you go, Microsoft knows who you are. So your personal company information is tracked in all of these systems, including SharePoint. So bunch of pros.
That's amazing. That actually looks really nice.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, okay. I have been, it always to me. When I just started, I was like arguing with myself whether I'm going to use Microsoft Teams or I'm going to use Google, And then, it's still ongoing at the back of my mind. But like, I feel like Microsoft Teams is kind of hard to use in a way. I used to use it when I worked back in 9 to 5, which is 10 years ago. It's been a long time. But then right now, I find Google is just like not so overwhelming. But it's also all over the place. I'm not going to lie. It's all over the place. I
agree. So here's the other thing, too. I'm not even going to disagree with that. I completely get if someone is like, I don't want to use that. This is just easier for me. It's just way more user friendly. I use Google for a bunch of my other stuff. I just get it. It makes sense to me. If that's the case, I'm not going to be the person that's going to come in there and try to convince you to get off of Google Workspace. Because if you're using, that's why I said I listen to people. If you're using those words, this is just user friendly. I've always used it. It feels so good to me. It works, gets the job done. If I hear you say things like that, then I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. I'll tell you what you could do with SharePoint. But I'm not going to convince you to get off the tool that you love. If you say something like, but I struggle with X, Y, and Z, then I perk up.
I have struggling
okay.
combining things like having a company wiki. That is something that I'm considering, like having a hub for knowledge base. I have been trying to make like we use different software for different purposes, which is kind of pain as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do that, but it has been doing that, but it has been working, which I know that it has no need to be this way, but it has been working like that. Like Asana for project management, Slack for communication, which we can use only for Google Workspace as well, but not comfortably. That is somehow what happened. However, it's all over the place still. And if we have only one place to store like an internal page, like you mentioned, that would be amazing. Company wiki is something that has been attempted, and I am still attempting to do, because it's not easy to do. Even though I trying to do it on the WordPress website, it's still not looking nice. It's not as easy to do, everyone.
All right, wait, let me ask you. When you say attempting, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by attempting?
So I have like a project, and I have the whole resources, the training. So we have subcategorized already in place. But for me, I find that it's not being used enough or utilized enough. So I want it to be more user-friendly or more visibly for internal. Therefore, I want it to be on one page or something that like one click and able to access. So that is something that I attempting to do. That has been on my mind. I thought that, okay, this is your help desk or something that you can just like click and get in. Yeah, but it's not visualized that way just yet.
Gotcha. Okay, so the first thing I would say is, remember when I said you could put everything in one place, and I also said SharePoint can do websites, right? So one of the main things that I recommend, I got a few things in my bag. One of them is that even if we're talking third-party software that has absolutely nothing to do with Microsoft, it can still go on SharePoint. And here's how. You know what Paylocity is? You heard of Paylocity?
No.
You probably heard of who do you use for your company timesheet or whatever? Do you have one?
Time tracking.
Yeah, like where people go and put in their timesheet, and then the payroll, your HR stuff. Do you have a company doing your HR?
Because we pay it per month, so it's not tracking like that.
So let's just say you said you have a bunch of different software that you use to do your proposals, right?
Proposal?
Or processes.
Yeah. So mainly would be Asana. Okay. Heavily would be Asana. It's like mainly
Asana. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So let's do Asana. Sorry, I thought you said proposals, but I'll go with projects. So Asana, right? Asana has zero to do with Microsoft. But if I had someone on the team come on board and I wanted to in-process them, let's say, one of the things I would need them to know is, one, we use Asana, and two, this is how we use it. So here's what I would do. Somewhere on the home intranet page, the main page, where it's the top page of everything that we do in this company, you need to start from this page, right? There could be a button there that says something like Asana, or there could be a button there that says something like projects. And then when you click on projects, you go and see, a page that explains stuff. What software we use, how we gain our projects, what the current projects are, and click to see more details, stuff like that, right? But there could be a button there that now says Asana, or how we use Asana. You click on how we use Asana, and you can go to a page that has text, that has video, that has screenshots, that explains how we at our company, how we use Asana. And then after you read through that, there's a button at the bottom that says, go to the Asana page, or go to the Asana site, or visit Asana, whatever. So even if you have third-party software that you use that has nothing to do with Microsoft, my solution to you is, well, how do you introduce your folks to that software? How do you tell them how you use the software? We all don't use Asana the same way. You use Asana a certain way. We use it a certain way. Every time we get a new project, maybe we don't put it in Asana. Where we start is Microsoft Word by putting some things in there. And then when the project materializes, now it's official, we put it in Asana. How do you explain that to the people that you bring on board? I'm going to do that with a SharePoint site, and everything. I do not care what it is. Everything is going to go on that site, including how we use Asana or insert any project management software or any task management software. It's going to go on that site. And then when I do onboarding with my team members and stuff like that, as I walk them through various things, one of them is going to be, hey, listen, all of our processes are on this site. So, if you need to know how we do certain things, it's all listed right here. You're going to be working in this department, so you need to know how we use Asana. Make sure you visit this. That's it. You know what I'm saying? And if I have to lose that person for some reason, when I get a new person, same process. And all I'm updating is that one page. And if I make an update to that page, I'll send an email blast to everybody. Hey, everybody, we just put this section on the Asana page. We're now doing this, heads up or whatever. And that's what the email says. And it has a link to go back to the Asana page. My mind is, I can't stop. My mind's
no, it's
going
amazing.
Right now.
I appreciate you. And do we know that that person has finished watching the whole video? Can we track that? Would that be possible?
No.
So it's not an LMS in that case.
No. People try to make it an LMS. Yeah. In order to make SharePoint become an LMS and do stuff in that way, then you need to do some extra development. And I would not recommend that for the average business user or for the average information worker or project manager. I'm not going to recommend that to you. If you have the budget and you have the dying need to have an LMS that's tracking, how far people have watched into the video, different story. But if you have a need for creating videos of you, the owner of your company, explaining to folks, why they should be excited to work at the company and, what they should look forward to as part of the onboarding process, we can do that. We can put that on a page, big, beautiful video, a little bit of text at the bottom. And then when they're done watching, we make them click next. And when they click next, they go to the next video, and then I could tell SharePoint in the background to capture when that person clicked next and then put it inside of a list, and maybe I could use it that way. It's just certain things you can do, but you got to, you're going to have to pay for some extra development because these tools are a little bit complicated, or you can go find your own tool, or you make the decision. Is it really that important for you to know who's watching what? Like, are you, if you're going to really use that information, by all means, go after it. But if not, you're more trying to cultivate a company of like, I want you to watch this video. I'm going to trust that you watch the video. You know what I'm saying? And then, we go from there. If I start to see signs that maybe you are not picking up on how we do things here at this company or company culture, then that's a different story. We handle that through people versus technology.
Oh my gosh. In case anyone want to work with you, Therman, I'm convinced. Where can they find you and where can they reach out to you then? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So listen, I plan to get me a custom link to make it easier for people who are listening that might be driving, or you're probably washing some dishes or something right now. I need you to just pay attention. This link is a little weird, but still. It's bio.site, and then you go /SPHD because that stands for SharePoint Helpdesk. So again, it's bio.site/SPHD. And it's like a link tree. The only reason I don't have an actual link tree is because Squarespace introduced this bio sites to me, and I was like, hey, this looks pretty cool. I'll use it instead of just getting the one everybody knows with Linktree. But it's fine. Just remember bio.site/SPHD. Super easy. Best way to find it.
I'm definitely suggest you to go follow Therman on Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. I know he has, and definitely check that link. Everything will be put in the description as well as the show notes. So ask him, follow his content about all of his IT things and also SharePoint. And as you know, he already answered my question already on the fly. So definitely check him out. And if you want to work with him on anything, reach out to him. So thank you so much, Therman, for joining Get Unstuck Podcast today.
Yeah, Mutita, thank you so much. This is good. This is dope. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
All right, see you.
I hope this episode inspires you wherever you are in your entrepreneurial journey so that you can have your business that supports your lifestyle. Get a show note at getunstuckmethod.com/podcast. Review what we have learned together today and start implementing right now. See it by yourself. The result of your consistent action are worth it. You deserve the freedom to enjoy your life. Until the next episode, let's get unstuck.